Greetings, everybody. Welcome to day 6 of Shark Week, where we sketch a different shark every day. So I'm so glad you can join me again today. If you're new here, hi, I'm Christine Elder. I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and wildlife artist from Southern Oregon. And I'm so excited to share this Shark Week themed drawing week with you. So we're live here on YouTube as well as Facebook. And if you want to watch the rest of this series in the future, you can see it on my YouTube channel on the Sketching Sharks playlist. So as you join in live, please say hello. That's the wonderful thing about being live together with you is it's interactive. You can ask questions about my drawing methods or about sharks. And so, yeah, I'm so excited to share this with you today. Hello, good morning, Jackie from Aloha. So, aloha. So, yeah, we are sketching the nurse shark today. So, every day we're sketching a different species of shark, and I've been trying to have these sharks be viewed in different positions to give you a lot of practice in drawing. And whether or not you like sharks or you're afraid of sharks, the drawing activities are really good. So even if you are not a shark person like I am, it's really good practice to draw things, especially in three-dimensional form like this. So today's shark is kind of flat here and turned. Now, this is the nurse shark. Has nothing to do with nursing. I think it's a Greek or Latin origin word, but the nurse shark is a kind of a couch potato. I really love this shark. It's not like the other sharks we've been covering this week, and certainly not like the great white shark we're going to do tomorrow for our finale. So I've been lucky to see nurse sharks and scuba dive and snorkel with them, especially in the Caribbean. So nurse sharks are on the East Coast of the United States and down into the Caribbean and then down into South America. And they're also on the West Coast of the United States from about Baja south to about Panama. And some people divide them into two different species, but they look very similar. We're just going to talk about them as their one species. So they're really different from other sharks we've looked at. They're different in their shape because they're really sedentary. Like I said, they're kind of like couch potatoes. They like to lounge around in their habitat and they don't migrate long distances. They have a lot of what we call site fidelity. So they stay in one site most of their lives. They also get together in big groups, which a lot of species of sharks don't do. So during the day, they'll sleep together, maybe under a ledge somewhere, and then at night they'll go hunting. So, for example, in the Caribbean, they live in shallow waters, in bays and estuaries, kind of murky areas near the bottom. And so that's why they're colored like this. The colors might not show up on the video, but they have a color that's kind of a lot like the lemon shark we drew because they do blend in with that kind of creamy colored sand. So they're kind of a yellow color as well. So they'll also be in mangrove swamps because that's a really good place to have your babies and have the pups be safe from bigger predators. So yeah, they're generally in warm, shallow seas, and they spend their whole lives in the same area. They don't migrate. And so they also feed a bit differently than other sharks. They're usually on the bottom, like we see here, really shallow areas. And this one that I've taken the background away from so we can draw it easier. They're generally laying down flat here. They'll do that for many hours. And they hunt things that are hidden under the sand. So we did do the hammerhead shark yesterday, and we talked about how they will hunt along the sand as well and eat things like skates and rays. these guys eat smaller things, and they have a really unique way of eating. They have a suction-like mouth that vacuums up the food, and that suction is so strong it can even suck a conch shell mollusk out of its shell. And if you've ever seen a conch shell, they're really big, and the very muscular animal that lives inside. So they have a really unique way of being able to suction their food out of like a conch shell or just out of the sand. So they eat a lot of things that are buried in the sand. They like spiny lobsters as well. And so another way they're really interesting that you might have noticed is they have these little whiskers that you can see here and here and here and here. So these little like cat-like whiskers, and these are known as barbels or nasal barbels, and they're sensory. So when they're going along the bottom, right along the sand, they can help feel for things. So they've got that extra sensory system, including the other ones that other sharks have, like the ampullae of Lorenzini on their snout. And of course, they're able to smell that's associated with those barbels. Their nostrils are right there. They have their eyes as well. And you can see their eyes are sort of white, and they have a cat-like pupil that goes like this that we can draw. So yeah, they have those interesting barbels that a lot of other sharks don't have. And they are in a group of sharks called carpet sharks, partly because they lay on the ground like a carpet. And so that's another thing that's really different between these guys and other sharks that we've been drawing. And we'll get to drawing in just a moment. But the more you know about the shape of a shark, the better you can draw it with ease and confidence and speed. And so most sharks have to swim constantly to get oxygen through their gills. But these guys can sit on the floor of the ocean and basically suck water in on purpose when they're sedentary. And they can also breathe through their spiracle, which some sharks don't have, like the great white we'll draw tomorrow. And that spiracle is a modified gill that's right behind the eye that you probably can't see in any of these photos, but it's kind of right there. I can put a little dot. It's kind of right there. It looks sort of like the eye in my picture. And so, yeah, as you guys come in, we're going to be drawing this nurse shark. Please say hello. Tell me if you've seen a nurse shark before. So another way they're different is their mouth not only has these barbels and able to suck prey into their mouth, but their teeth are not sharp and big, again, like the great white we'll do tomorrow. They're kind of flat like plates, so they can crush the really hard things that they eat, like different sea shellfish. Oh, hello, Diane. Thanks for joining from New Jersey. It's so wonderful to have you here. Yeah, carpet sharks, because they lay on the ground. They're couch potatoes, very sedentary, and they're very mild-mannered. So I have been lucky to scuba dive with these guys in the Caribbean and just enjoyed watching them hanging out. Oh yeah, Lisa said you saw them at SeaWorld. Yeah, right. Okay, and then when we draw them, we're going to draw this one. But I just wanted to show you these other ones as well. Now, something common with all of these sharks, as well as sharks we've seen previously, is they have these little free riders, these freeloaders following them around. Does anybody know what these fish are? In the chat box, tell me if you know what these fish are that are always following the sharks around. They have this suction-like mouth. It's really this big flat plate on the bottom of their head, and they can suck on to the shark. Now, they're not a parasite. They're just getting a free ride, and also that helps protect them from other predators. The sharks don't eat them, but these little fish also will help to eat parasites and dead skin off the fish. So they're quite symbiotic. kind of like those birds that live on the backs of elephants and giraffes in Africa. So yeah, what else can we notice before we start drawing? Another really unique thing we'll notice when we're drawing are the size and placement of the dorsal fins. This week we've been learning the names of the fins and what they do and how they differ. And so if you see this one, I don't know if you can see that any better, but it's really great to see things in different views so you really understand their shapes. And so these guys have two dorsal fins that are almost the same size, and they're placed way far back. Generally, the first dorsal fin is kind of right in the middle of the fish, but these are way far back, and they're big triangles. And the edges of them are loose, as if somebody took little scissors and snipped them. But they are loose, but they're about the same size. And then their other fins, which you can't see in this view or this view very well, the pelvic and anal fins, those are about the same size as each other, and they're kind of larger relative than for other sharks. Now, coming to the tail, they have a tail that has a really long upper lobe, like a lot of sharks, and that little divot out of them that looks like it's been cut out. And the lower lobe is super short. It's the shortest of any of the sharks we've seen. And it's covered up in this photo that we're going to be drawing from, but you can see it right here. And that relates to their sedentary lifestyle. So it's kind of out of the way. So when they're on the seabed resting during the day, it doesn't get in the way. Okay. Anybody guess what the name of these little fish are that follow them around? No one guessed yet in the chat box. Okay, we're going to start sketching because we've talked about all of the parts. Yeah. So like I said, each day we draw a different species of shark in a different position to give you practice drawing things three-dimensionally. And so this shark is in a really characteristic position where it's laying on the seabed, and the front of its mouth, its head is closer to us than the back of the body. So it kind of goes up at an angle, and then it curves around, and then that tail goes up. And so this looks kind of hard to draw, but if we break it down into parts, we're going to be able to do it right. Okay. No one's guessing the name of the little fishies that follow them around? Starts with an R. Okay. Maybe we'll add one of those. Alrighty. And so we're going to start drawing, and I've got a few different tools I'm using. I'm just starting with a light graphite pencil. And then I'm going to move on to a charcoal pencil because those blend really beautifully to give me nice dark shadows. And then I'll blend that smoothly with my blending stump. And then I'll add some deep dark highlights going back directly with the charcoal pencil. And then maybe adding some dark highlights with a permanent pen. And then the most fun part is the very end, we lift out some highlights with our eraser pencil that you can actually sharpen. And then we'll add some highlights with white charcoal. We'll also lift out some highlights with this wonderful eraser that is kind of rectangular shape. And then lastly, we might put some highlights in with the Uni Posca pen, just like I did showing you where the spherical is. Jackie, you're right. A remora. Wonderful. So the little fish that follow them around that have a sucker-like suction on their head is the remoras. Yes. And Diane, you also looked it up. Great. Okay, we've done enough talking. Let's make this bigger. And this is a pretty wide shark in the way the pose is. So it's going to maybe go just off the page if you're watching on the phone, but I really always suggest that you try to watch my tutorials with on a desktop or whatever largest computer monitor you have. And it just makes it easier. Okay, great. So we got it all taped down. I'm going to put my glasses on. And so, yeah, here we go. So, yeah, what we see is this angle of the main body going like this and the rest going like this. So it's kind of like a V. And this is pretty wide here. And we can put them pretty low. Let's see, you can see that. Yeah. Okay, so the body, main part of the body is going to be kind of like this. And then that tail is going to kind of be going up like this. And I don't know if, let me see. Yeah, I think you can see that once. Let's see. Okie dokie. All right, we are drawing the nurse shark now. So we've got the head area, and I just block things in. I don't do any erasing until the end, really. And if I have my photo here, I can cheat a little bit and go like this, and go like this. It's pretty close. And these photos are available if you're in my course. And tomorrow you're going to get a bonus set if you're in my paid course of the great white sharks to finish off our week. So I'll mention that course again at the end. But yeah, so we've got this kind of a long oval shape. And then we have the tail. So Remora is kind of in the way a bit, but that's real life. And we got the tail going up like this. And we see those nice negative shapes. So like there's this big sharp triangle here. In fact, I got to get it a little sharper. And it goes beyond the head, kind of like that. Okay, and you guys can see that, I think. Good. And again, if you're watching on the phone, you can watch it on the phone, but I suggest, especially if you're going to try to follow along, that you go watch the replay. Yeah. And this is thicker than this because it's closer to us. And so, yeah, we've got that thicker a little bit. Okay. And then let's firm up that head so that once we start adding the fins, we want to make sure that we've got our main outline pretty close. So let's firm up that line for our head. And not too firm though, because we have to add the fins. All right. And so let's add our fins. So we only see the shark's right pectoral fin. And notice how far back that is. So again, this is challenging. It's way far back because it's facing us, and we've got some perspective stuff going on. In fact, some of you watching are in my my drawing membership, and we're actually going to be studying perspective next month and how to really emphasize that. So we've got the base of the fin here, and then we kind of actually have a little bit of an edge here. It's turned. Fin is turned. We even see a little bit of the bottom of the fin, but we'll add those details later. Okay, and then we see the gills. Now, another interesting thing about these sharks is most sharks have 5 gill slits, 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't see that other one. That fifth one is really close to the fourth one, and that's super unique. And that fifth one is right on top. And we've talked about this all week, where you've got these. Generally, most sharks have 5 gill slits, unless you're a 6 gill or a 7 gill shark. And that's so rare, that's actually their name. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that last gill slit is pretty close. All righty. And then, let's see, as long as we're working on the head, let's finish up and add the barbels. So there's a tiny one that's mostly hidden by the snout, and then there's the bigger one that is showing. And then there's the eye. And again, the eye is pretty far back because we're not looking at this sideways. It's kind of coming towards us. So it's kind of in line with these. Like that. And then we have the spiracle that's not going to really show very well, but it's going to be about there. All righty. Now we're going to add the 2 fins. You can add your remora if you want. I don't know if I'm going to add it, but what we need to do is we need to finish up this line, and this line has to get a bit skinnier here because again, this is going away from us. And I have a hard time drawing. You got to appreciate when artists are demoing, it's pretty hard because this is taped down and I am doing some, physical gymnastics to be able to draw this. And it's harder to draw accurately because usually I would be turning my whole page to be more ergonomic. Now I've made a total mess. So I want to clean this up a bit before we add that other fin. So, but what we're noticing here is this nice round arch, and this part is skinnier here than this part, a little bit, by a little bit. Anyway, that exact line won't matter too much. We'll be lightening that and putting in some shadows and things. But I think this whole thing, though, could get a little skinnier. All right, so we're going to add that first fin. Now, our remora is in the way here. He really is. But that's, something that you're going to come across when you're drawing from photos, and that's why it's really good to have a few different reference photos to understand what's going on. So these fins are being attached to the end of the body, the tail. So we really need to add the rest of that tail because the rest of that body is showing here as it goes up and arches up into the tail, right? So we're going to have to show that because that is attached there and not necessarily to the back that we see. Oh, right. Lisa says, oh, the freeloader. Yes, the remora. Okay, so the second one, again, we mentioned that in this shark species, the first and second dorsal fin are almost the same size. Let's see. Yeah. And they're really far back. Okay. And then we have this tail, and it almost looks like a thresher shark kind of tail. And it's got this subterminal notch like a lot of them do. And then it kind of arches. And I'm noticing where it comes in compared to the head. Where it comes in. I might have my eye. Oh, see, I have my eye too Close. Yeah. So once you start drawing things, um, no, part of it is the tail's too thick. So we got to remember that we've got atmospheric perspective happening here. So that tail is going to be thinner than it would be because this tail is farther away from us. Because these sharks can actually get pretty big. They get to be about 10 feet long. Yeah. So did I have my eye in the right place? No, I've got it a little bit too far forward. So once you start getting some relative things close to you here, you can start placing them a little better. Yeah. So see, um, part of me really wanted to, let me see if my whole shark, so I've got the length right of the whole shark, but I do have the fin a little bit too close. So that's okay. I can just make it skinnier, but just, noticing that you get, once you start getting some more parts in, then you can look at them relatively. I think I want to go like that and like that. There we go. I think that's better. All right. So, yeah. And I'm going to give him a little bit flatter head here. So you just start noticing more things. So that's why I want you to try to draw very lightly. I'm drawing a little darker. Yeah, I got my eye way too close. So, and since we're going to put a lot of shading in this, doesn't matter if we make a little bit of a mess, but we want that eye to be farther back. And so, again, the good thing about having, I put it right here. And then the spherical is going to be a bit further out here. Okie dokie. How we doing? We're just getting most of the main parts here. And even if your proportions are off, that's okay. Let's just go ahead. Because it's, even if your proportions off, it's still good practice to do this next set where we're going to start adding the three-dimensional form. So if you're just joining us, we are focused on the nurse shark today, and every day it's a different species in a different pose, and the poses have been getting a little bit more challenging, and tomorrow's pose is going to be the most challenging because it's our last day of Shark Week. Okay, so now I'm mad at myself. I put that thing right there. I want that to show. Okay. Yeah, so again, here's another view. And so it always helps to see different views. Norton is saying my cloud storage is almost full. That's bad. Okay. So yeah, again, if we look at them from the side, it's just good to see things differently. So obviously they have these fins that aren't showing at all. Again, because this guy's sitting right on the sand. In fact, we don't even know if it's a guy or a gal because we can't see the pelvic and anal fins and the claspers between them. So this is where I'm going to start shading. And this is where we want to really notice where the sun's coming from. And the sun is coming from a little bit different place than I normally place it. It looks like the sun is coming from over here because we have a really bright highlight that's separating this forehead from the tail. And that's going to really help us to separate it. So yeah, how we doing here? Tell me in the chat box if you're ready to start shading. Yeah, we can add the remores at the very end if you want. So now what I always do is I always lighten all of these lines so that we won't have an outline. So hopefully you've gotten followed along well enough because a real shark is not going to have an outline, right? And so we want this to look more realistic. Good. Lisa says you're ready. Wonderful. So I'm just lightening all of these. So yeah, people might not think this nurse shark is all that fancy or anything, but it does have a lot of interesting characteristics because it is a sedentary, local homebody, couch potato, and that it's likely that you might see it if you're snorkeling, um, especially if you're in the Caribbean or in Baja. And so it's a species you might see, and definitely I've seen this one a lot. And yeah, they just have a really interesting way of suctioning up their food from the bottom and having these unique little barbels. And yeah, they just have a bit different body than a lot of things. So Jackie says, okay, good. So whatever pencil type you have now, some people might have a shading pencil like this 3B. I like to use my charcoal pencil and then blend it. And so I think I actually need to sharpen it. And I've got a nice new sharpener, this Faber-Castell. It's really important when you're working with especially colored pencils and charcoals. They have very sensitive lead that breaks really easily. So I'm just going to start shadowing, and I'm just going to add a medium value everywhere like we've been doing all week, because we're going to add our deep shadows and lift out our highlights after we get a nice medium value everywhere. And that's just the way I work. You know, everybody has a different way they work. But I just kind of get this loosey-goosey, light and loose, just not too concerned about my perfect edges because it is a little bit hard to get a good edge when you've got your hand flat. But I'm trying to just use the width. Oh, I love that sound of the charcoal. I might want to darken this a bit here so I don't completely lose that edge. Oops. And I got to make that a little bit skinnier there. Because again, this dorsal fin is attached to a different part of the body that is showing right here. So, you know, this is where we start really getting more of the three-dimensional form. Yeah, so then I'm not going to get that confused. And I'm going to keep that top part really light. Okay, so Jackie and Lisa and Diane. Diane following along. I didn't see Diane if you said you're ready or not, but this is the part we're doing now because I try not to keep us more than an hour so that you'll know when you're following along with me that I'm not going to take all day, although that does look like a tooth, doesn't it? But it is just a barbel. Probably gonna make that a little skinnier. Okay, so now I have a little value everywhere. In my courses, I talk about a value scale and making your own and all that, but this is our free event here. So Anyway, however you can do it, now is where you might just want to smooth out your values because, again, a shark is not made of pencil marks. So we don't want to make it look like it's pencil marks. This is where the magic slowly starts happening. And it's so cool when you finally get to that part where it's starting to really come alive, but not quite yet. Shark is not alive yet. Just kind of blending. Tell me in the chat box, those of you who are following along, what kind of materials you're using. You've seen me use charcoals now for a week, if not months or years, if you've been following me. I actually have a whole course on drawing wildlife in charcoal. I haven't talked about that course for a while. But anyway, just blending. Oh, good. Diane says you do better watching first and then rewatching later and actually drawing and pausing. Okay, yeah, because, I'm talking a lot, obviously. And you can see how sometimes I get in my right brain and I can't really talk anymore. And it's best for you too, maybe, to not hear words. So, like when I'm drawing in my studio, I don't have any kind of music. I don't have a radio or anything. Maybe sometimes I can listen to instrumental music, or sometimes I'll just listen to this Africa webcam that is just the sound of the wildlife visiting the water feature in Namibia. But I can't hear words when I'm drawing. So I should really try to not talk so much during these, but like Diane said, you can always go back and watch. You can always turn my voice off too if you want. Okay, so Jackie says graphite pencils, would love a course in charcoal sketching. Okay, great. I'll email me if you can. I'll try to share that later. I think I launched that course. When were we doing that course? Live. I was doing that live launch back when I first moved here in, well, it's just in April. All right, so you already see I'm getting some of this darker. Now I'm just going to start adding some more. I'll go back with this. So we really have some bright sunlight shining on the top, and that's really going to help us to separate those values, isn't it? So let's go now over and add some more shadows. So we've got some shadow under the fin a bit. And it's always a little difficult. It's challenging because you're challenged to add the dark pigment on top of the shark, but you also want to emphasize that there's shadows on the underside that is that is actually a lighter color. And so your values that you're adding with the pencil, that's going to be a combination of trying to get the light underside, but some of it's in shadow, comparing that with the light part of the pigmented part. So yeah, anyway, it can be a challenge, but and also we're not seeing that this shark is sitting on a sandy bottom. And so that light sand in a sunny, shallow coral reef is actually going to be bouncing some light off the bottom here. more so than a shark that's maybe swimming. So these are all things to consider when you're drawing. And let's see. Yeah, I'm just gonna, so I'm trying to, yeah, I've completely gotten rid of my gills. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you really don't see 5 lines. It's kind of confusing, but I'll put them here anyway. And we'll get some more highlights and shadows on those guys later. Just a little bit more rounding on this shark. And they generally have this ridge that you've probably drawn with me already that differentiates the top of the head from this sort of line, almost an imperceptible line. This ridge over the eye. So I'm just trying to get a little bit more. And we have more. Actually, the sun might be up here a little bit because see how light it is here. And it's a little bit more shadowed here where the snout is going away from the light. Anyway, I love pencils, especially charcoal pencils, because it's just really easy to keep adding and subtracting to get things a little bit more realistic. Okay, and then maybe blending that a bit. And sometimes as an artist, you have to, again, look at more photo references or more videos, or if you're out there lucky enough to be out there with a shark, to really understand the three-dimensional form more. That's why I generally have more pictures, especially if you're in my courses. I give you lots and lots of photo references of animals in different positions. Okay. And then, so that's pretty good for now there. Now let's add some more shadow. So we actually see the back like that, which is separate from the fin, which is attached farther back. So that's where it's really important to start getting those. And even though you can't see it very well with Remora, the more you understand how light hits a three-dimensional object, and the more you understand the form of that three-dimensional object, like how our fin is going to be darker than the back because the back is facing the sun more than the fin is. So just these subtle differences, like how I've got this little highlight where this back is. And, I might move, like I might just keep this Remora down here because he's really in the way of helping us to understand the three-dimensional form there. Anyway, and then moving up into the tail. So the tail, gonna have some darker areas here, especially in the middle of the tail where it's thickest. And like our other tails, there's going to be a highlight kind of in the middle of the tail where the cartilaginous backbone goes up. And but we don't want to get too much detail back there because again, this tail can be 10 feet away from us than the snout. So we want to have fun with really emphasizing that. So we're mainly trying to get now most of our values. And I love how these blending stomps can also easily change the shape a bit if I don't think it's quite right. And it can soften the edge of a shape. And so I will just continue to do a little bit more blending before I add some sharper highlights and shadows. And so at this point, we don't have as much three-dimensional form as we want. We're just getting there. Okay. And so, so this is where the really fun part starts. So now we want to get more bold with our edges and our shadows. So and the highlight is the very last thing that's really going to help us. So we want to get some more, like the top of this fin has more pigment in it than the bottom. And we want to separate those edges. So wherever two edges overlap, we want to make sure yeah. So, and then at this point, I'll kind of do a lot of back and forth blending and just looking at where my sun is. And then there's some shadows in the middle of these gills. Because again, this guy or gal is sitting on the bottom and it can suck water in through its mouth and push it out those gills. And that's how it can breathe, which is different than a lot of sharks. Okay. And then how's our time? Oh, we're running out of time. So now we want to add just our last details, which are really going to make it pop more. I just think I want a little bit. So if this were a sphere sitting on a kitchen table, we would talk about bounce light a lot and how the light is bouncing off the shallow sand. You can add sand later if you want, or we could kind of do it. Well, let's do that at the end. Anyway, you could add some sand. Okay. And so we want to start adding some sharpness here, especially right on the back, because this is a really obvious change between this light forehead that's close to us and the tail. Okay. Okay, how we doing here? Yeah, so often, there's just a lot of details we could talk about. Again, you should be in my course on drawing wildlife in charcoal. But often I might shadow this more than this. But in this case, we've got a lot of bounce light, and maybe the top of the fin is going to be darker because it's also pigmented. So again, you're always battling adding values to show pigment versus adding values to show shadows, highlights and shadows. Okay, so here's where the fun part starts. So this is where I'm going to start lightening some things with my pencil eraser. And again, that can be sharpened. Depends which sharpener you put it into, how sharp it's going to get. Oh, yeah, so that's more dull. So that's nice and sharper. And then this one's sharper. And then we've also got yeah. So let's see, where should we go? So here I'm just gonna, and we'll do the eye and the spherical very last thing. So let's, and cleaning up the edges the very, very last. So I'm just gonna add some highlights of kind of where I see them. You can also see some sort of stripes here. I don't know. And yeah, you might not be able to see this stuff very well. And there's actually going to be a highlight on the front of this fin. And there's going to be a highlight along the top of the tail. Again, where in front of the shadow of the backbone that goes into the tail, the cartilaginous backbone. Boy, I really wish I could get rid of that other line there. And remember, you can soften the edges by doing a little racing or just doing more blending, because we want to make this tail look like it's a lot farther away from us. So we definitely don't want to show any of our first sketch lines. Except that's my mistake right there where I made it skinnier. So if something's farther away from you, it's going to have less obvious highlights, less obvious shadows. Well, that's looking pretty good in the picture there. I often check what the shark looks like in the monitor. But our sharpest contrast is going to happen right here. That's what's going to help our shark look like it's really coming towards us. And this fin is going to be closer to us than that fin, but not by much. But again, this nurse shark is a bit different than other sharks because both of the first and second dorsal fin are almost the same size, but it doesn't look like it because it's a little closer. And that first dorsal fin is going to be pretty far back on the body. And there will be this nice highlight. I just want to emphasize that a little bit different because this shark is turning pretty sharply. So we really want to separate those values whenever something is close. Whenever structures are overlapping, you really want to separate those values so that they don't blend into each other. Like here, there's a highlight on the back compared to the fin, and the front of those fins are going to have a little bit of a highlight on them. So yeah, this is where this subtle stuff starts to really And yeah, I can just, yeah, I want to push that tail back away from us. So I can just, and like I was saying yesterday, these are things I wouldn't be doing as a scientific illustrator so much. I do have a degree in scientific illustration and I do professional projects, but I would not be trying to emphasize this atmospheric perspective as much if this were a scientific illustration. That's why I really love, being more of a wildlife artist and not an illustrator, because an illustrator is bound more by what actually something looks like than the atmospheric perspective. I know that's hard to. Okay, so let's really make this head come forward, and we can just make these edges a lot sharper. And I might do that with my pencil here, making that edge sharper without giving it an outline. So that means you have to gently blend. And yeah, the snout. And that one barbel is farther away. I've kind of made this barbel too thick. It looks like a tooth. And there's the highlight of the snout a little bit on top of it. Okay. Anyway, it's a fine line, and some of my try lines are showing through, unfortunately. But if this were more of a finished drawing, I would be doing it. I would be transferring this drawing to a different piece of paper with transfer paper. So, and again, this is super awkward that I'm having to turn where normally I would be turning my page. So I really encourage you guys to be turning your page. Okay, we have to give this guy an eye, and they have a very white eye. I'm going to do it with this. And there's a little bit of a highlight on the spherical too. It's really subtle. I might just add a little. A lot of people wouldn't even notice the spherical if they weren't looking for it, but that is a different modified gill. Maybe just a little highlight. I don't know if you can see that at all. But yeah, anyway, there's the eye, and the eye is in a little bit of a socket. So I might highlight around it a bit, and that'll help. Remember, again, there's this ledge that runs kind of like that. And just a little bit of shadowing around the eye. Oh yeah, it's easier to use this. So yeah, I'm doing some little fiddly things you might not be able to see very well. But we want to give, they have this little pupil. It's kind of like a goat. And I don't know. Oh, that's right. I should. There we go. I'm just going to do that so you can see that better. So yeah, I'm just trying to get that eye. There, that looks good. And what else? Oh, a little bit more of a highlight on some of the upper parts of the gills. There's even a little bit of a highlight on where the so yeah, again, you can use highlighting, actually adding opaque white, or you can add subtle highlights with a white charcoal pencil, or even erasing. So it just depends on how strong you want those highlights to be. Okay. Oh, we are coming on 1 hour. Oh my gosh. So tomorrow is our very last day. And for those of you who are in the course, I've actually just added an extra handout that you guys get. So I do have links to the course in the chat box. But tomorrow we're going to do the great white shark, the ultimate shark. And so I added a fun 3-page handout for you to see shark, the great white shark, in all kinds of detail. Oh, it's actually a 4-page handout. So that's already in your course. Again, the course is just $25, and I have lots of high-resolution images for you, as well as some more high-resolution images of the great white shark, in its natural habitat. So it helps, because sometimes when you have something like this where the sharks are in the blue water, it's a little bit harder to see their edges and a bit distracting. So I'll often have separate handouts where I've masked out the background, which takes a while, but I purchased these images for you, and you can print them out if you're in my course. Again, that's Discover Sharks. You also get these handouts on the anatomy, and in this case, I'm using the great white, as well as my other handouts. So, yeah. So I think she's pretty well done. He or she. What do you guys think? I'm always wanting to fiddle with things a bit more. And again, always looking at wherever two objects intersect, and making sure that there's a real difference in value between them. So where things overlap, like between the shark's back and its tail, and between its dorsal fin and the rest of its body. So like we have some subtle highlights. And again, these things might not show up if you're watching, especially if you're just watching. Yeah, and remember, if you want to add your remora, you can. There's always a whole school of remoras with the sharks. And yeah, so yeah, the biological illustrator in me wants to, firm up these other lines more. But again, I want to make these edges a little softer, and for sure blend those first sketching lines. And I want to make things that are closer to us with a harder edge. And so, that again is done with your so you want to have a harder, sharper edge on things that are closer. We can emphasize those little barbels. Oh, we didn't get this. You can't really see it, but the nostrils are just outside of the barbels. So there technically would be a little bit of the nostrils showing right there, probably. Okay. And yeah, anyway, I could go on with this for a while if I wanted to. It's just fun to keep blending, keep making things. And if your highlights are a little bit too obvious, like that white I added, I can soften that. You got to be really careful when you're working with the Uniposca highlighter because it can just go overboard. Okay, I'm going too crazy and it's already been an hour. So thank you so much for joining me today to draw the very interesting and unique nurse shark, which lives in the Caribbean and other places. It gets up to be 10 feet, but it's very gentle, homebody couch potato that just feeds off of invertebrates on the seafloor and lives its whole life in one neighborhood. But like other sharks, it is considered vulnerable technically by the IUCN. And so just like all the other sharks, we got to take care of them, respect them, teach other people about them and their conservation. So I hope you had a lot of fun joining me today and that you'll keep working on your sketches. And again, I hope you can join us tomorrow for our other class. And so if I remove that, I could actually share a screen. Let me see if I can see that screen. And there it is. Right. So I just wanted to show you just briefly, if you haven't seen it already, what my course looks like. And so that's, let's see, I don't know how to scroll through it. Oh, I don't know if I can scroll through it. But the course is, I just sell it this time of the year. And I've done a lot to fix it up. Where am I now? And update it. Oh yeah, I don't think I'm on the same page. Wait a minute. I've had too many pages here. There we go. So this is actually what the course looks like. And so inside the course, you'll see the welcome messages, and then you'll see my lessons. I've got a lesson on the parts of the shark, so you really understand them, and a lesson on actual sketching tips. So even if you don't have a lot of experience drawing, and then some drawing demonstrations, drawing the side view of the great white shark, and then a really challenging 3/4 view. And then I've got all the downloadable handouts. And then the bonus workshops that I filmed in previous years, which include the blacktip reef shark, the whale shark, the hammerhead shark, the tiger shark, and then also this week's drawing demos that I'll add there so you don't have to go over to YouTube. So that's 7 days. So that's what we've been doing now. Let's see, I can remove that and remove that and add, yeah. Oh, there's a big shark. So Lisa said you'll be watching video tomorrow. Diane says, thank you. Jackie says you'll watch later. And Lisa says she's got a super dirty eraser. Is there a hint for cleaning it? You've got the Faber-Castell pencil set, mixed media pad, pencil towel for blending. And yeah, you're limited in what you have. So yeah, the results you get are really going to vary. So it just depends on your type of paper, how smooth that paper is, how usually when I'm doing these charcoal pencils, it helps to have really smooth paper. This is actually, I think, copy paper here. But yeah, you just have to practice with the type of paper you have, the type of pencils, type of erasers. I even love to have a mechanical eraser, which has a battery in it, which you squeeze and then it kind of jiggles like that. And it's really good at lifting. So yeah, and then also if you have one of these sharpenable erasers, you can actually sharpen it and that will clean the tip of it. Also just rubbing your eraser like this on a empty piece of paper will get rid of the edge. But there's a million kind of erasers and I've got them in a pile over there. There's another eraser that's comes in a very fine point, the Mono Zero by Tombow. And then this eraser also is another Mono Zero with a rectangular shape. And again, you can kind of clean it like this to get a nice sharp edge. So it's just all about experimenting. And then, also being careful not to draw too darkly on your first version. Like I did here, I can't seem to get off that wider tail. So I was if you indent the paper, it'll be hard to get it off. And so, if you're going to spend a lot of time on a drawing, and it's going to be the final drawing, just like I do when I'm doing official biological illustrations, I'll do my first outline on one piece of paper, and then I'll use transfer paper to put it onto the final paper type that is most appropriate for my media. So if I'm using ink or graphite or watercolor, those are going to be different papers. And then I'll have just a nice, clean, light outline having used that transfer paper. So anyway, that's all I can tell you for now. Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining me today for day 6 of our Shark Week, sketching a different shark every day in a different position. So again, if you're inside my course, you get to download the images. Again, it's only $25 to join the course, and it's a 2-week money-back guarantee. So we're going to be doing this shark facing us. That's going to be the most challenging one. Okay, so you guys who are in the course already, you can go ahead. I put these in the bonuses under Great White Shark, I think white background bonus images, something like that. Okay, so thank you very much, Diane. You enjoyed this tutorial. Wonderful. So you keep working on your drawing without hearing me in your ears, and I'm sure you'll finish it up really well. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you tomorrow for our 7th and last day celebrating Shark Week, finishing up with the ultimate shark, the great white shark. So take care, live and replay viewers, and I hope to see you tomorrow. And remember, if you're new here, all of my videos are available on my YouTube channel on a playlist called Sketching Sharks. So go ahead and check that out. Okay, bye-bye.